Hello, my name's Alyn Jones and I work for ASJ Education, who are contracted by the Blackwater River Conservation Trust to deliver the CatchmentCARE education programme. I'm actually one of two educators in CatchmentCARE. Stephen Crabb, my colleague, is contracted to deliver the Community Incentive Scheme education, working alongside community organisations and community groups to help them deliver education in their locality, in their local place. In this little talk today, I wanted to have a look at how it all began, to look at 2020 and how we managed the COVID restrictions and how we got some sort of education done when everybody was locked inside. And then to have a look at this year, what we're doing this year, and a wee bit of future casting and have a look at what might happen in the final year next year. So I was contracted back in 2019 to deliver a pilot scheme of 6 weeks face-to-face education in 8 schools across the 3 catchments. That was to include 3 trips to give students a first-hand experience of some of the basic science of river mechanics. That was to build knowledge of local rivers and ecosystems, but it was also to empower those students to look after their local river, to connect them again with their local place. We began with a basic water topic, an introduction to where water comes from, what is it, how does it get into rivers. And in the second week we did a basic river study, taking depth measurements and width measurements and velocities, and as well as looking at some of the biodiversity by doing some kick sampling. In week 3 then, we went to explore some of the geology and some of the geological features around rivers and in that ecosystem. So we looked at the karst system and took the students to Marble Arch Caves, got a really good handle on how water affects geology and how the geology in turn affects rivers. And then we had a look at man's impact in week 4, again to create that connection between the students and their local river, how rivers can impact human habitation, but not only that, how we as humans are using and abusing river systems. In week 5, we went and explored biodiversity a little bit more. Had a look at some of the vertebrates, some of the fish and the mammals and the birds that might come down and use a river system, habitats and ecosystems. And finally, in the 6th week, then we spent some time helping the students to share their experiences and to share their learning. They did artwork and they did some writing, and they also created big, large maps, a very visual display for their schools, and they created videos. By the way, those videos are available on the CatchmentCARE YouTube channel. So, you know, a little glass of wine this evening, you could, your whole evening of entertainment sorted out there. That basic programme was to build understanding and to empower children and young people. Each group in the school made videos to capture their learning and to conclude the project. But there needed to be a next step. So for 2020, the intention was that phase 2 would empower the teacher to carry it on. A lot of the principals and a number of the teachers had said to us that in the past, European projects and funded projects, there was a big splash, a big interest to begin with. But once the money dried up, the project would die and it would never be talked about again. And we didn't want that for this project. So phase 2 was all about legacy. How do we carry on the learning and education beyond the life of CatchmentCARE? So what we wanted to do was to bring the teachers and our partners together to build the relationships between them and ease ourselves out. We gave the teachers the programme that we had completed in phase 1. And it's built like Lego blocks, so it could be taken apart and rebuilt according to the teacher's scheme of work for that year. So if, for example, they were doing a water topic, they could choose sections to focus on. If they were doing biodiversity or invertebrates, they could choose those sections and build their own programme, then link with the relevant partners and create their own dynamic scheme of work in their class for the following year. That was the intention. But then COVID happened. So when the COVID lockdown was enforced and schools closed down, we thought that the project would have to go on hold and we would have to just sit it out and wait until the pandemic ended. But although the buildings were shut, education was still happening, teaching was still going on. Teachers were now in their front rooms doing this kind of thing, creating little videos and lessons that the kids would then pick up at home. And although the curriculum had been limited to language literacy and numeracy, teachers still needed a diversity of learning for their scheme of work. And so they were scrabbling around trying to find different ways to illustrate things and make things interesting for the kids at home. So we had a dilemma. As an outside agency and organisation, do we wait until the shutdown is over and wait and bide our time until we can get back to face-to-face work? Or do we create something, change the contract that we had to create resources and worksheets for teachers to use with their class at home? We knew that our teachers were struggling. We knew that our teachers were desperately seeking any support that they could get. And the big question for us was then, not really, do we do this because we knew it was the right thing to do, but how do we begin to do learning outside when the kids are locked inside? How do we begin to do river study work when most of them will just have a back garden as their baseline? So we didn't want to lose the goodwill and the position in the schools that we had from 2019, and we felt that we needed to support our teachers. So we decided to create a series of 5 videos, 5 little episodes, and teacher's pack. And the teacher's pack would have teacher's notes telling them all that was in the education programme, a little bit of background and extra information about the topics and the scientific terms that we were going to be using. Worksheets for the kids then to do in association with the episode, and an activity sheet then that was a bit of fun but helped to illustrate the topics that we were looking at in that episode. We covered water and geology and biodiversity and some river study work and pollution based on the 2019 education programme. Because it was done very quickly and in response to the lockdown, the first episode or the first series was filmed on this mobile phone with this microphone all over the place. And so the sound is weird and the lighting is weird and the camera work is weird, but it achieved its purpose. We had the opportunity to go and be socially distanced, but visit a number of our partners and supporters and organisations that we would tend to visit, like in 2019. And that was the first series. And it looks like this. CatchmentCARE is made up of 8 organisations working to improve 3 of our local river catchments, the Arnie, the Blackwater and the Finn. We have a series of 5 videos for you to use in your class or send home with your students to help them explore the world around them, and in particular, these stunning rivers. The videos are curriculum based and will introduce children to the importance of water, how rivers work, the stages and life of a river, the biodiversity in a river habitat, how rivers move and shift over time, and how humans impact rivers. We do science experiments. We do crafts. We go exploring. And meet amazing and interesting people along the way. Each programme is accompanied by teacher's notes, worksheets and activity sheets for further study and enjoyment, and can be used in either the classroom or at home. So why did we do it? Well, CatchmentCARE believe that our local rivers need support and looking after to become sound, resilient ecosystems. So by engaging local communities, and in particular our kids and young people, we can make a much greater impact and build a legacy of interested, enthusiastic and knowledgeable people who are invested in their local river far beyond the life of CatchmentCARE itself. and they were extremely successful. Our teachers took them on board, they used them in lots of different ways, and we kept them exclusively to our schools and our sort of 6 new schools right up until Christmas time. The intention was that we would have our 8 schools back in 2020, and we would have an additional 6 schools who would do the phase 1 programme again. But we gave all of them the opportunity to have the 2020 videos. After that, then we put them on general release on our YouTube site, and a number of teachers picked them up. What happened was our teachers in the programme spread the word amongst their colleagues within the school, and then that went wider beyond that. So we had schools in Coleraine, schools in Omagh, and further afield who were using the videos in accordance with their, or in connection with their own river systems. But in 2021, we had another decision to make. At the beginning of the year, there was no sign of schools reopening. They were in a second lockdown. There was no word of a phased restart. But by March, the minister had begun to say that he wanted schools back before Easter and fully opened by just after Easter. The schools were saying the same thing. They were really keen to get kids back in the classroom, although there were a number of caveats. And if we weren't to lose a beat and lose a step and lose the momentum after our 2020 success with the videos, then we needed to start early to build our presence again. So what do? Do we hold on to Easter to then do face-to-face work? Traditionally, study work, field study work happens sort of April, May, June. And by that stage, if we're only preparing then, we are really on the back foot. So we began in February to create a second series of videos. Series 2 began with preparation and organising our story and our structure. And then we did camera work from the end of February, beginning of March. We had a new camera and sound guy come on board, Gardner Mitchell, and I'm sure you've seen some of his work with the other CatchmentCARE videos. And Gardner is an excellent addition to the project because our sound quality and our camera work quality just went through the roof. It was fantastic to have him on board. And the partner response, although great in the first series, was amazing in the second series. Anybody who could give us a hand were there again to share their experiences and to share their learning from their work. Those who weren't able to be part of the project weren't part of the project because of the COVID restrictions, particularly cross-border. And so series 2 looks a bit like this. So what about the future? What happens next? Well, as we were concerned about in our very first year in 2019, we are still concerned about the legacy of our education programme for CatchmentCARE. We still don't want this to end up a programme stuck on a shelf once this programme has gone, once CatchmentCARE has faded into oblivion. We don't want the messages of resilient ecosystems to be left on a shelf somewhere in a school. We want relationships with the partners to grow and for the schools then to take on their education programmes and give them the wider context of the CatchmentCARE education programme to work within. We intend to go back into schools and do face-to-face stuff next year. We would love to be back in front, that's our bread and butter. We want to be back in front of a group of kids and students. We want to be able to support our teachers much more, maybe spending a couple of days with them, helping them to take apart the Lego blocks of our programme to rebuild it. But now we have not only a 6-week education programme that they can work through, but they also have 10 videos, 10 sets of teachers' notes, 10 worksheets and 10 activity sheets that they can begin to use year on year, building in the relationships with their partners, building in the relationships with those places that will take them for trips. And so therefore we want the momentum to grow beyond CatchmentCARE, not just fade afterwards. I hope that's given you a bit of a flavour into the education programme. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or certainly give myself or Stephen or Andy Griggs a wee email after the conference. Thank you very much. But of course, why take my word for it? I spoke to Susan Lockington, a teacher in Omagh County Primary, who has used the package. And this is what she said.
Hello, Susan. How are you?
Hello. I'm not too bad.
Good. How was your bank holiday?
Okay. Bank holiday was wet, so I started writing my school reports. So that was my bank holiday.
Very nice. Very nice. Listen, look, thank you very much for chatting to us today about the education videos. Really appreciate that. It's always good to get some feedback. But look, I want to give it a wee bit of context. So would you do me a favour and take us back to the COVID shutdown, if you would, and how was that for you as a teacher, and what was it like, and what about your workload? How did that increase your workload or not?
I think it was a shock to the system. Everything you knew how to do in school had to be rethought again. The things you used in school you couldn't use from home. You had to resource in a completely different way. You felt a bit helpless as well. You weren't there for the kids who needed you. Parents were feeling anxious, children were feeling anxious. Some of the kids feeling a bit isolated, but unmotivated, and no matter what you did to try and motivate them to keep the contact there, some of them didn't thrive during lockdown. Some kids loved it. Some kids loved the freedom of being at home, the freedom of choosing when I do my work and when I don't do my work, and I can go out and play because the sun's shining, or I'll do my work later. But yeah, a bit of a shock to the system. I think this time round it was a wee bit easier. First time round, not so good. We get used to it after a while, but yeah, it was hard going.
And then workload for you, how did that translate? So normally you go in the morning, you have your stuff prepared, you have a class in front of you, you teach those lessons, hand out the homework, and away they go. How did that work for you then in lockdown? What are the practicalities of that?
The practicalities of that were you had to record things, which if you're not used to being in front of a camera, then it's not so easy. You had to rethink how you were doing things because you couldn't go and work with an individual child or a small group of children who were struggling. So you had to over-explain everything, but then also challenge those who needed the challenge, which meant you probably had to triple everything that you were doing with regards to kind of the actual physical giving them work to do. There was a lot of photographs taken and scanning and trying to find things which were suitable, things which could be downloaded, things which people could print off. Then you had to make for those kids who didn't have printers, you had to think of a different way to work with them. So it wasn't just your normal kind of day. Everything in the middle of all that, then you were getting emails from people and phoning parents to check in with everybody. So it was a very different sort of working day.
And that's before you had to look after essential workers kids who were in school. Wow, okay. So it was like tripling the workload then. So you had,
yeah,
wow.
It was.
Okay.
And then in the middle of that, trying to kind of, write reports for the end of term and get ready for this year's new intake, even though you felt you hadn't finished off with the kids from last year. And then got to know the new ones coming in. It was a hard transition for them and for us as well.
Plus the uncertainty of whether you were actually going to open, because we didn't really get word really until just before Easter, isn't that right?
Yeah, I think we got 2 days notice. So it nothing like thinking on your feet. But it was good to get back before the Easter holidays for the kids, just to kind of touch base again before they went off for Easter. And I think it was good for the teachers who were anxious about being back as well, that we can get back into that routine with the kids again. So we just have to think on your feet, be prepared.
Okay, all right. Well, look, thanks for that. So if that's the context of what was going on, so we created this series of videos, and the intention was that it would be easily used by by yourself and your colleagues to be able to sort of learn about rivers and the water topic and things. And we've created these videos. We put together the teachers' packs. How beneficial or not is something like that for yourself in that position during COVID?
I would say it was excellent, because you could just lift it. It was ready to go. The video was there. You didn't have to prepare anything extra. You lifted the teacher's notes. You knew but you knew what was in the video. You knew what was going to be contained in the video. So you knew where it fitted in with what you were doing with the kids. Brilliant. The fact that the worksheets were easily accessible for the kids at home, there was nothing too complicated for them to be able to do at home with the parents as well. And the crafts were, they were great, because there was nothing, it wasn't go and find all these really mad things. It was go to your blue bin and see what you've got. Go to the cupboard and get some string, things that the kids would have had at home, which meant everybody felt that they were able to do things there because they had the resources available. So it was excellent.
How then did you use the programs? Because one of the things that Stephen and I were very aware of right from the start was that, you as a teacher, you may want to just put on the 20-minute, 25-minute video and just play it for the kids. You could upload it to your website for the school and let them access it that way. Essential workers kids you could watch it in the assembly hall or whatever they were being looked after, or you could take out chunks of it depending on your learning scheme. How did you use it?
I have used it in class and as home support, homework as well, kind of thing. So I've maybe used it. We're doing a topic called water everywhere and world around us. Brilliant. So I've used it in with that. So I've kind of taken my scheme of work and put the videos in with where it suits, like the water cycle, when we're doing the water cycle and all of that. We've used some of the things like the rain gauge, then linked in with our data handling, which links perfectly with what we're doing. The experiment writing, we're doing instructional procedure writing. So there's all those cross-curricular links there. So that's where we've used it in our school, kind of to link in with the world around us topic. So it's been good.
All right, well, let's talk about how it's been received then. I mean, are the kids connecting with it? Do they find it beneficial? Is it a good illustration for them, or is it a distraction? It was certainly one of the things that, again, Steve and I were very aware of, was that we were creating a kids program, but with a real educational basis to it. So how have the kids connected with it?
Well, as you know, kids love screens, and kids also love people. But kids do love things presented on the screen. If I was to stand and give them the same information to me at the front, it wouldn't have the same impact. So even fresh faces, I've got to be honest, we're not that popular teachers, so we've got to be honest with ourselves. But even, the fact that you were a different face, you and Stephen come on in a different kind of way to speak to them. It caught their attention. The link with the kind of the other organisations going out to see people, it wasn't just in one place. The fact of that, the kids absolutely engaged with that. And then at the end, they were kind of, can we do the experiment? Can we do this? Sometimes I would have even paused it during it and said, right, what do you think is going to happen? You know, and even the scientific discussion with that was brilliant for them. Excellent. For me, it was great because I don't have the knowledge maybe there. So to have somebody else explain it in a different way, explain all those scientific terms to them at their level, has been fantastic for us.
And that was useful, having the scientific terms, not dumbing it down, but using the terms themselves. And
I think for some of the kids anyway, they have kind of gone away with kind of those wee kind of good words, you know, and they're kind of going, brilliant, really smart, I know what that means, you know. So for those children just who are so absorbent of new terms, they loved it, just to see what those things meant and go and kind of experiment with that. So it was good, yeah.
That's excellent. Well, look, for us at CatchmentCARE, one of the overarching theme of all of this and the whole project is about creating resilient ecosystems. And certainly from our perspective as the educator and the education team, what we've wanted to see is that there would be some sort of an impact, that there would be a building up of knowledge, but there would be an empowerment element to it, that the kids would feel that they would be able to make an impact or make a difference, or that they would certainly find opportunities to connect with their local river. Now, you're not in the 3 catchments. You're one of those teachers who has found the resource and is using it outside of the catchments.
We're a wee below wind, so we are. So
yes, exactly. But that's quite exciting in itself, in that, you know, there's a resource here that has been created for the Arnie and the Finn and the Blackwater, but it's able to be transferred outside. Do you feel that it can make an impact, or that the kids can now, now that they feel more empowered with this knowledge, do you think they'll go on and make a change?
I think so, and I think especially, I think it was episode 5 where it was kind of, you know, looking at the impact of pollution and things and what we can do. We have a couple of rivers kind of between either side of the school. Now, they're not accessible to the children, but they are there and the kids know about them. We also have what they call the duck pond, which is over in near the leisure centre. So the kids see that every time they're over at the leisure centre, and even being aware of the impact of litter and the impact of all of that. And I was watching series 2 just as I kind of to see what was coming next.
Now, just to say that you're not supposed to have series 2 yet, but we did let you see it just for the purposes of this conversation.
Just for the purposes of this. I haven't showed it to the children yet, so it's all right. But, you know, even the impact in the future, we have children who come from farming community. So the impact of kind of, you know, what's happening in their home place and how that can be affecting the land around them and the river system around where they live has kind of maybe opened that up a bit more. Also, we're hoping to link it in with our eco schools for next year.
Brilliant.
We're choosing topics, so water is going to hopefully be one of the topics that we'll focus on, using this as a springboard into it with the kids. Already haven't had the knowledge there, so hopefully that will impact us in the future.
Excellent. That's super. Well, look, I mean, is there anything else that you feel that we need to hear, or that people at conference should hear about the series and the education program? Or
I think just that it is an excellent resource. The fact that it has been designed but for Key Stage 2, but it can be taken and adapted for younger kids. It can also be extended for those children who are maybe in P7, who are ready kind of, you know, for a wee bit further. And I know that's kind of hopefully where you're going with series 2, you know, that it does take that further knowledge from series 1 and say, right, this is the next step, this is where we're going. I love the fact that it's linked in with so many different parts of the curriculum. You've got your literacy, you've got your numeracy, you've got everything there, the ICT, we've even got cooking now. All of those things are all in there, which means that you can pick and choose the bits that you want to take that step further with the children, which is always good to springboard onto the next step with them. So thank you.
well, listen, thank you very much for taking the time today, Susan. That's great, and I hope that gives people a great handle on how it's being used in the schools, because I mean, it's very easy for us to say that, yes, there's lots of views and it's gone out to so many schools and so many pupils are watching it, but it's great to hear firsthand from somebody like yourself in the position using the resource. So thank you so much for that.
No problem at all. No problem.
Thank you.